finding it impossible to talk to some people. Our language online and face-to-face is changing, not necessarily for the better. Award-winning author Carol Off joins us with more now on her new book, At a Loss for Words, Conversation in an Age of Rage. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hello,
so you focus on what's happened to 6 key words. Freedom is the first one.
Yes, and freedom, when I was writing about freedom, I thought we would never get this word back. It had been taken over by the so-called Freedom Convoy, what we'd seen in January 6th in Washington, where they had taken this word as being the freedom to do what you want, the freedom not to wear a mask, the freedom not to get vaccinated, the freedom from obligation to others in society. And they took that idea of freedom, wrapped it in a flag, and called it patriotism. And it made me so angry. I thought that word belongs to people who've liberated themselves from tyranny, liberated themselves from poverty, and I thought we should take the word back. I didn't expect, in those dark years of writing the book, I didn't expect that just before it was published, Kamala Harris would walk on stage as the new nominee for the Democrats and say, "Freedom, we're taking that word back." To me, it was an extraordinary moment.
And you're going, yes, I've spent all these months working on this.
Have you read my book?
Yes. Well, and even as a journalist, like we would ask people at these rallies, freedom from what?
Yeah.
Freedom.
And they would just yell, "Freedom!"
Yeah.
It didn't mean anything. I did the same as a journalist, and asking people, "What does this word mean to you?" And one man said, our grandfathers who went to war for freedom would turn over in their graves if they knew that just because people said some scary thing like a pandemic was there, that we had to wear a mask and we had to get vaccinated. Well, for God's sakes, people in war knew all about protecting themselves from these things. They were there to protect us from others, and so that didn't make any sense. I don't think that was really what they understood, what freedom meant to them. I don't think they ever thought it through. It was just a way to sort of, and we can't dismiss that people really were feeling very anxious, very insecure during COVID, and scared, and they felt when they could join something like that convoy or join that movement that they had a home. So we can't dismiss that the people genuinely felt that fear of things, but it was played on by others. That was the thing that really I write about the most in the book, is that yes, people feel fear, uncertainty, insecurity, but it's when people play on those fears in order to manipulate them for their own gain. That's what I was really concerned with in this book.
Right. Woke is another word that you use here, and I had forgotten where it came from.
Well, woke in the last century was a word that black community in the United States used to say, "Stay woke, be aware," because they were dealing with all kinds of frightening elements, the KKK and whatever else, that there was fear of being attacked. And so just look over your shoulder, watch where you are, be aware. And then during Black Lives Matter, it became a key word for that movement, and that was an activist word. It was that racism isn't just something that happens to you now and then. Racism is actually embedded into our society. It's systemic, and that was their message out of the murder of George Floyd, that it was systemic. And so so that became a new way of understanding woke. What I write about is how woke got turned back on those communities, and said that woke it became a dirty word. It became a weapon you could hit people with, and they said that we're not going to have these woke agendas, these woke radicals, this wokeism. And what I came to understand what they meant by woke in that context was that there were racist tropes, there were misogynistic things they wanted to say, there were all kinds of phobias, and they couldn't utter them without being accused of being racist or bigoted. So you say, well, I'm not a racist, I'm just against wokeism. And so it became a way to sort of smuggle odious ideas into the public space under the guise that I'm fighting against wokeism, I'm not a racist.
Yeah. So many other words in there that I wish we had half an hour. A really important line, though, I'm going to end on here. You write that journalism needs to take the lead in resetting this conversation. So I thank you for doing that and starting this again with this book. Carol Off, the author of At a Loss for Words. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Annette. Thanks for the conversation.